welcome back to another week of Flip of a Coin, the docu-series. We are on to episode 6. Last week was my off week because school was starting and it was just crazy, but I am back with new content and super excited to share it all with you. Before we get started, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Comment down below if you want to share your story or if you want to suggest ideas for future videos. Know that this is a safe space where you won't be judged and every story is welcome, no matter how big or how small. Today, we have my friend Kiki, who is talking about her experience with ADD. Along with her ADD, she has dealt with generalized anxiety disorder and social anxiety. She's going to be talking a lot about executive function in the brain, which plays a huge part in ADD, and it was something that I didn't know about with ADD, but she enlightened me about that, and I think it's very important and shares a huge light on what ADD really is and how it's not just what the media shows about not being able to focus. Again, in some cases that is the main part of ADD, but in other cases it's not. If you're interested in learning more about executive function, there is a link down below in the description. I hope that this video can be informative and inspiring, and here's another one for the mix. We are on to episode 6. So everyone give a warm welcome to my friend Kiki. Kiki, say hi to everyone.
Hello, everyone.
So Kiki, why don't you start with telling us a little bit about yourself? Where are you from? What do you do? Etc.
So I am from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a sign language interpreter. I'm a cat mom. I have a munchkin cat who is almost 12 years old. He's my baby. His name is Pippin. He's beautiful with his tiny little legs.
I'm a cat mom too. I have 4 cats of my own and I love them. So we need to have a cat play date whenever I'm in Atlanta.
Yes, they'll be best friends.
For sure. All right. So Kiki, what made you want to come on and give an interview today?
I just think that it's a topic that should be talked about, every day. It's never been something that, well, I wouldn't say never, but once I got through middle school, it's not something that I've ever shied away from. It's a part of me, and it's a big part of me. It doesn't define me, but definitely I deal with my mental health every day, and I have a lot of friends who deal with mental health, and so I think it's just really important to talk about so that it's normalized and it's not so stigmatized. So that's why I wanted to come do an interview.
That's such a good way of wording it. That should be normalized and not stigmatized. I'm actually probably going to steal that from you now. Yeah, that's awesome. So speaking of talking about it, the floor is yours. I would love to hear your story.
I was formally diagnosed with ADD in 4th or 5th grade. Which, first of all, being females are typically underdiagnosed. We're overlooked oftentimes in an ADD diagnosis, among other things as well, but, specifically ADD in this situation. After struggling for years in school, at home, we finally were able to put a name to it. And my mom said, from the time I was a toddler, she knew that something was different about me. She could tell, based on the different struggles that I had, that I was not, like an average, typical child, that there were some issues there, and she just didn't know what it was. But once we finally figured it out, we were able to, go from there. We did the medication route, and it helped for a long time. And sort of the way that my ADD manifests is I don't have the hyperactive component, which was sort of another reason that it took a while to get a diagnosis. And throughout my schooling, I was often sort of overlooked as having ADD because I was a straight A student. The way my ADD manifests and what is typical, again, every body and every brain is different, but what are some typical sort of symptoms of ADD are focus and concentration, Obviously, easily distracted, which is kind of what people typically think when they hear ADD. Some people are hyper, um, but for me, I never really had that hyperactive component. But some other things that play into it are like impulsivity and difficulty with social cues. And I think those are two things that are often overlooked with ADD because you think attention deficit, okay, you just can't focus or you're easily distracted. But there's so much more that goes on because what it is in the brain is your executive function, or as I like to call it, my executive dysfunction. Um, and that sort of controls those different aspects of doing things, focusing, completing tasks, understanding sort of socially, like being able to read a situation or read a person. And I have always struggled with that. On top of my ADD, I have generalized anxiety and social anxiety. The executive function is really where ADD happens in the brain. And what that can look like sometimes is wanting to do something or knowing that you need to do something and telling yourself to do the thing and nothing happens. So, a good example is maybe I'm sitting on the couch and I really want a bowl of cereal. And I tell myself, hey, get up and make a bowl of cereal. And I will tell myself to get up and get a bowl of cereal for 2 or 3 or 4 hours, and it won't happen. Um, and it's not even a chore. It's not like go wash dishes, it's something delicious. It's something that I want, but my body just can't make that final connection of like having the thought and then getting up to do it. And it's just like on this loop.
So
But
when you have those moments of, like, for the example that you just used,
Mhm.
is it because you're consciously thinking to yourself, get up and do this,
Mhm.
and then some part of you is not doing it? Is it almost like a feeling of like you can't do it? Or like, I'm just curious, like what it feels like, because I know from a depression aspect what that feels like.
I think in some respects it's similar because I have depression as well. And yeah, some things about it are similar to depression, but it's also um, it's almost like the brain and the body disconnect at some point. It's incredibly frustrating because now you're self-aware, right? And it's like, okay, I know I want to get up and get a bowl of cereal, and I know the thing that's stopping me is this executive function, is my ADD. Just get up. And this is sort of the internal conversation you're having. And so then it's like now it's this battle, and it's like, just get up. Why can't you get up? So it's like you tell your legs to move and then they just don't move. um just there's this disconnect, and instead you're stuck like in this rut, this processing rut of like, get up, and then it doesn't happen. It's incredibly frustrating. And then all of a sudden it'll click and it's like, oh, I can get up and I can go and do the task. I remember the moment I knew that the holistic remedies were working for me was I needed to send a letter. And I had the thought, I need to send this letter. And then I immediately walked outside and put it in the mailbox. And I was like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, I've never done that before. I've never had a thought and then immediately completed the task without this struggle, without this internal, like, get off the couch, kind of deal. And that was when I was like, oh, wow, this is incredible. So that was kind of a life-changing thing for me to know, what it could be like um, for the executive function to function.
Yeah, I think that's really important that you talked about the executive function, because I know I didn't even know about that stuff. Like, I know because we've talked on the phone quite a bit, and you've talked to me about it. But before, I thought that it was just an extreme attention thing, and not because it's
not because I believe the stigma, just because that's all I ever hear ADD about. So I think
Right.
that's very good that you talked about it. Really quickly, I just want to ask you, because you said you also have generalized anxiety.
Mhm.
Does your, I'm wondering, like, does your ADD heighten your anxiety? Does your anxiety heighten your ADD? Are they kind of like feeding off each other? Like, does one make the other one worse? Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Good
My
point.
therapist talks about how sort of like ADD and anxiety and even like some aspects of OCD, she's like, yeah, they're cousins and you can have, bits of all of them and they make each other worse. And they absolutely do.
Yeah.
Um, Especially before I learned how to cope. And as I still am growing and learning how to cope with these things, yeah, absolutely. They feed off each other and it's easy to spiral.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, definitely.
So I would love to hear some of the ways that you've coped over the years of either being frustrated at yourself or knowing that you can do something and feeling like not being able to.
The biggest things for me was therapy. It's still is therapy. My mom put me in therapy when I was around 15, specifically to start to develop coping skills for my ADD. I was going to be graduating soon, going to college, becoming an adult, moving through the world. She wanted me to be able to have coping skills to be successful and happy and, feel comfortable and confident in myself. So I started therapy at 15 and we started working on, time management and how to remember things and what sort of works with my body and my brain together. And so for me, that is natural holistic remedies, a good diet and exercise, staying active is really, for me specifically, is critical. If I'm not active, my depression sets in, my ADD is just, I'm so scattered. Normal everyday tasks are a mountain to climb. Also, just little things like writing things down. I know, and I have learned, I know myself well enough at this point to know that if somebody tells me something or if I need to remember something, I have to write it down. Because if I say, "Oh, I'll just remember it, I'll just hold it in my head, I'll repeat it," it's not going to happen. Like, so I have to write things down. I have to set alarms. I have so many alarms and reminders going off in my phone. But it's it's such a game changer, because when I was a kid, we didn't have smartphones. So, it was like using those little like egg timers and just, it was such a hassle. But now I always have it with me. I can immediately make a note. I can set a reminder to go off in an hour or, 3 days from now for whatever I need. Also, keeping things visible for me, if I can't see it, it doesn't exist. And so even if it's really important, like it will just leave my head. I'll never remember it, or maybe I'll remember it a month later and be like, oh my gosh, where is this really important thing, or I forgot to do this crazy important task. So I have to leave things visible, so I have little cues for myself. Talking to friends, finding your people who understand or at least are willing to listen and not judge you. My parents are like hugely supportive of me. I don't know where I would be without my mom. She taught me to advocate for myself, which has been a huge part of my life and a huge part of my success.
I think it's really important too that you mentioned that these are what work for you, because everybody's brain works differently, and something that does work for you may not work for someone else, but it's always good to give it a try. I've talked to people who don't, believe in medication, prescription medication, and they automatically just say, oh no, medication doesn't work. But like, no, it doesn't work for you. It may work for someone
Right.
else, which I think that's very important that you said that the holistic works for you. And that's amazing that it does.
Yeah. I
So
always like to qualify that because I think it's really important to understand like this is what works for me and my body and my brain chemistry. But for a long time, medication did work for me, and I don't ever want to like poo-poo someone who needs medication. I think it's really important that, we're all individuals and we're all treated individually. And what absolutely, if something works for me and you want to try that, yes, please do, but don't. I think it's very dangerous to judge someone for, they take medication and I don't, or, vice versa.
Definitely. I know that you've mentioned it a little bit back at the beginning. Again, normalize instead of stigmatize. I still love that. So I know that you believe that there is a huge stigma in the whole mental health community regarding mental illness. So I was wondering two things. Number one, how have you yourself felt stigmatized, if you have ever? And two, what do you think that us as a society can do to help break that stigma against mental illness?
Well, I have definitely felt stigmatized and judged and overlooked for my mental health. I've had teachers literally say to me, well, don't use your accommodations on this test, or, I don't think that's real, or you have good grades, like you don't need extra time to complete your test. And number one, that's against the law, first of all. But two, you don't know what someone's struggles are, like just because I make good grades, like I worked for those, and I absolutely need my accommodations. It evens the playing field, right? Because I'm playing with people that don't have trouble concentrating, so I need that extra time, to level the playing field, so to speak. I had a roommate actually who, before we ever lived together, I told her, I have ADD. I have to leave things out so that I can remember to do them. It will never be a mess, but I might leave my laptop on the corner of the coffee table, or a letter on the table by the door so I can remember to, put it in the mailbox. And she was cool with that, so she said, but she was not. And ended up like hiding my laptop from me because she didn't like that it was out on the table, and it turned into this whole big fight. And she was like, well, if your ADD is so bad, like, how do you even function? How are you even alive? Like, how are you even doing what you're doing? And she was a special ed teacher, someone who is supposed to like have understanding and be helpful. So yeah, countless times where people just, you know, you're not different. You don't need these accommodations. How are you even functioning? And I'm just like, okay, wow. Like, it's not your place to tell somebody what access they need. If I'm saying I need this for equal access, then believe me, because I know. As far as society goes, I would say be kind. I think we could all be a little nicer to one another, a little more understanding. I think especially these days, people are going through things, and we just need to have a little empathy, a little sympathy. Um, and I think, back in the day, we didn't have words for what a lot of, people go through. You were just odd, or you were, a little bit funny, or a little bit off. But I think nowadays, as we study and learn more about human bodies and brains and biology and chemistry, we have words for what people go through, and we have descriptions, and we have communities, and we have coping skills. So, people aren't alone, left to sort of flounder and figure out things. We have techniques to be successful. And so I think just, being a little kinder and having a little more understanding for each other could go a long way.
I totally agree. And actually, something that you said just reminded me of something that I learned in my I actually took a course on mental illness. So this was by Dr. Patrick Corrigan. His quote was, our culture understands more now than ever in the entire history of mankind what mental illness is, yet the stigma has doubled.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important that you mentioned that, because we do have all this technology now, and we do have words, and we do have living people who are examples of it. What are some final words of wisdom that you would give for anyone who has ADD, who has even just general anxiety and is frustrated?
Find your people, find people who can support you and uplift you and be there for you. Personally, therapy was a total game changer for me, and where I learned a lot of different coping skills. So I would encourage everyone to at least try therapy and try to find a therapist that you connect with. I think that's the biggest thing, is that, people say, oh, I tried it and it just didn't work out. But my advice when someone's looking for a therapist, I'm like, shop around. Don't go with the first one. Also, know your rights. We have protections under ADA. They're federal rights for equal access, and, learn how to advocate for yourself, because we can, I say we, people with mental health and disabilities and disorders, can request accommodations in school and in the workplace. You don't have to be hindered by your mental health.
Well, thank you so much, Kiki, for everything, for enlightening me and hopefully a lot of other people on ADD, and for being so honest and open and talking about your experience. It was so great to see you and to hear your story. Well, anyway, I hope you have a great week. Today's Sunday. Yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your week, and we will talk soon.
Okay.
All right. Bye, girl.
Bye.
Huge shout out for Kiki for being so brave and honest and open about her story. It is never easy to share your story, so everybody that does come on here and share your story, you have my utmost respect. And I hope that these stories are proving to anyone watching that you're not alone with whatever you're dealing with. Don't forget to comment down below if you want to share your story. Also, don't forget to share this channel with anyone that you know who is suffering from a mental illness or does want to learn more about mental illness. I definitely think having all these people come on and talk about it is really going to help break that stigma against mental illness. And I really do think that, as we were talking about in the interview, if we all are more open and understanding, we can utilize the technology and the words and the vocabulary that we have nowadays for these illnesses that we previously did not know about, and use those to understand them and to be more open-minded and accepting of them. Also, this is National Suicide Prevention Week, so just don't forget to check in on your friends and just say, hi, how are you doing? I hope everything's well. Send them a cute picture of a puppy, whatever you want to do, but just make sure that you're checking up on everyone, and make sure that we're continuing to encourage that that is never the answer, no matter what you are dealing with. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to please like, share, subscribe, and comment down below. Below in the description is that link to the executive function. There's also a link to my support group on Facebook called Flip of a Coin, the support group, Breaking the Stigma Against Mental Illness. And there's also a breakdown of this video, so if there's any part of the video that you want to rewatch, you can click on the little time slots in the description below. Stay strong, don't forget to smile, and I'll see you next time.